Today on the Spiritual Spotlight series, I'm so excited to welcome Teresa Wim. She's a dragon channel, energy therapist, speaker, nurse, and a spiritual guide who helps people unlock their intuitive gifts, reconnect with their soul purpose, and experience deep healing through dragon energy. Teresa's story is very powerful. She's a first generation daughter of Vietnamese refugees raised in Minnesota, which is kind of fascinating to be in Minnesota. And her journey has taken her from chasing external success and discovering that true joy, purpose, and freedom come from within. Her work centers around dragon energy, sound healing, energy healing, and intuition, ancestral guidance, and deep spiritual activation. Through her sessions, retreats, and sacred dragon sound journeys, Teresa helps people release old patterns, reconnect with their inner power, activate dormant gifts, and trust the guidance that has been with them all along. I'm so excited to explore her story, her work with dragon energy, and she's also going to be gifting us with an amazing dragon code light activation, which I'm very excited about, and how healing can become a pathway to freedom, fulfillment, and remembering who we really are. Thank you so much for coming on Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
Hey, Rachel, I am super excited to be here. Hi, everyone, whoever's listening.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to just jump right in. Can you maybe start by sharing your story and what first opened you to spiritual work that you do today?
Yeah, I never thought I would be doing anything like I am doing today, much less work with dragons. And I am Vietnamese, so we follow the Chinese zodiac. We have our own like nuances,
Oh,
but
yeah.
generally it's like the Chinese zodiac is very much a part of our culture. And I was born the year of the dragon. However, that never meant anything to me other than it was this mystical figure. It wasn't like a real animal that we see, around us,
Right.
right? Like physically. You guys know what I mean. And so it's strange that it has taken me here, but long story short, it wasn't until about 15 years that I started getting curious about spirituality, what that means, because I was born and raised as a Catholic. And
That's a
um,
jump.
yeah, and I'm still Catholic. I'm still Catholic. Just so if people are questioning,
Of
like,
course.
I still, go to church and have spirituality as part of my life, and they
Heck
absolutely
yeah.
yes,
Heck
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and so it's been a long journey. It's been a
Yeah.
long journey in evolution. So 15 years of just doing like energy, I would call it energy work. And I really didn't feel like I was doing anything different than anyone else. I was an energy healer, happy to do it. Uh, and about what's 2026 now, about 2022, I believe, I lose track now. I was at Mount Shasta for a retreat, and I was one of the people who was supporting the facilitators. The first
Nice.
night it was a sound bath, and I do sound baths. You can see my crystal bowls back here. So it was like
Yeah.
the first time I got to actually not have to do anything but sit back and receive. So I was super excited when my friend told me that she was doing the sound bath that first night. Immediately I told her, I said, I think something's going to happen, like to me. But I have no idea what it is. It just had this
I
feeling like,
love
oh my
that.
God, my heart was like, it just started pounding, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, something's happening. I don't know. So the night of the sound bath, I step into the yurt and my heart starts to race. Like it is racing, and I'm not nervous. I'm not even like expecting anything, even though I told her I knew something was going to happen. I wasn't worried. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
just going to come in and experience this. There was nothing that I could do to slow it down. Deep breathing and mantras and affirmations, nothing was slowing this heartbeat down. I thought I was going to like faint and pass out, but I thought, okay, let's just calm down. This is not an emergency yet, So let's see if the sound bath will relax you a little bit.
Right.
And just so everyone knows, there was no alcohol or substances or plant medicine during this time. It was just dinner. And so I
Nice.
laid
It was
down.
just salad and bread.
Yes, exactly. So I laid down, and there's like almost 20 people at this retreat. I don't know, nobody knows who I am. They just know like I'm here to support the
Right.
group. And so I'm laying between these two girls, these two young women, and the sound facilitator starts to beat her drum. And every time she hits that drum, my heart starts to come out of my chest. And
Wow.
I was like, what is going on? I had no idea. My body was reacting to this sound and whatever energy was was growing in my body because every time she hit that drum, that energy got stronger and stronger and it wanted to come out of my body. But because I wasn't familiar with it, because I had no idea what was going on, I was clenching and constricting and literally holding my body like tight like this so that nothing could come out. And it went on for maybe about 5, 6 minutes, and I
Yeah.
couldn't more. The energy got so strong. I literally could not hold it in. So I just let go. And as soon as I let go, I started to make these weird noises with my voice.
Right.
I started clicking and hissing and tongue rolling and like these guttural noises from my throat. And I'm still here. I have not left
Right.
my body. So
Of
I'm
course.
fully present. And I'm like, what is going on? Because I can't control it. And every time I stop, I'm getting that feeling of like resistance where I'm fighting something and I know I can't win. So
Mm,
again, I surrender. And, it doesn't take my friend long to hear me and come over right away. And she's a wonderful spiritual healer. She's been doing this for, almost 2 decades. So I just trusted her and I
of
trusted this
course.
space and I just felt so safe. As soon as she came, I completely surrendered, completely, because I knew like I was in a space where whatever this was, because I was being held and seen and heard, essentially, I could just be in the full experience. And this went on for a good 40 minutes where I was making all these noises. I started to convulse. It was like 100,000 volts of electricity coming
Wow.
into my body, up and down. It's just buzzing, buzzing. Buzzing is not even the word. It was zooming, zooming in up and down my
Right.
body. And about 5 minutes after that, I opened my eyes and I saw dragons flying above me. And I was like, this has got to be dragons. Because what other energy like feels like this, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I kind of let myself experience it. Eventually, the dragons then used my voice to basically participate in the sound bath. They started toning and singing in this vibrato that I have never used before.
Mhm.
And it was very interesting. The entire time, still in my head, I'm like, what is this? Like, why is this happening? And I'm wanting to control it. I'm wanting to understand it. And so I'm like, just chill, just let this be what it is.
Right.
And and finally, at the end, I was like, okay, I don't know who knows what was happening, but I was thinking that people knew like I was making
Right.
this noise and all these sounds, but most of them thought it was the sound bath facilitators. Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
because when I explained to them like what was happening and I was telling them like I'm so sorry, like I could not stop it and this has never happened to me before. Dragons were in my body and what you were hearing was dragons. And they're like, "Oh my God, we thought that was really weird that the sound bath facilitators were making that noise." But we're like, "Okay, that's cool." you know?
Right.
And the two girls, of course, beside me, they were
Right. We're
concerned.
like,
Yeah, they were concerned, but as soon as they saw Amy, they were fine.
right.
And so yeah, so it was that was the first time I ever
Right.
experienced dragon energy, and they've been with me ever since. Yeah, and oh, just to validate what I
Of
was
course.
experiencing, my friend and I were talking, and I told her I said I think it was dragon energy. She said no, it was because they also channeled to her to let her know which chakras to open to allow the dragon to leave and which chakras to, I'm sorry, which chakras to open to allow the dragons to come through and which chakras to close as they were leaving.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty incredible for it was the first time for her too. So it was
I
a
love that.
really wonderful, crazy, amazing experience that taught me, but also reinforced that this is real, right?
Right.
I couldn't deny it. I couldn't say, was this real? Did this really happen? I have witnesses and I have my friend, and I wasn't drunk or in some sort of altered state. I was completely present in my body.
Wow. So when dragons first began to show up for you, to work with you spiritually, like how did you know that this was something that you were meant to work with and to continue working with even to today? You still work with this powerful dragon energy.
It took me 2 years. I didn't, I was scared. I was scared of what people would think of me and say to me and about me and judge me. I was scared of what my family would think, specifically my husband and my kids, because I'd never channeled like this before, ever.
Right.
And it
Right.
wasn't in English, so that was the worst part. And it wasn't even pretty. It was different.
Right.
It wasn't like this beautiful, like celestial
Ah,
sound. Yeah,
yes.
no, it was very like raw and primal and like,
Yeah.
yeah, which is, yeah. So there was
Mm.
a lot of
Well,
fear that I had to work through.
I really like that you brought up that, you acknowledge that there was fear inside of you. How did you come to reconcile that fear and then truly lean into working with the dragons and really honing in on the truth of who you are as a spiritual practitioner?
hmm It was a lot of uh, self-reflection about what this fear meant, where
Mm,
this fear came from. Like why am I needing someone to validate that this is okay to do and it's okay for me and it's safe for me to
yeah.
be seen this way. And so, yeah, it was a lot of figuring out, like for myself, like why I had all these fears. And a lot of it is one, just the conditioning that I had around spirituality
Mm,
and what it's supposed to look like, based on what I've only been exposed to.
right.
I never have heard of anyone else working with dragons. And
Mm,
when I did my research and I started encountering and exploring other dragon practitioners, none of it resonated with me. They work with dragons totally, but it's in a very different way. And so I was looking for some sort of familiarity that would say,
mm,
"Oh, she does it, so you can too." Versus it being like, this is freaking weird, but it is okay. Like this is you, and you are nothing like anyone else, just like you are nothing like anyone else,
right.
right? Like really owning the uniqueness of the gift that I received that was
Right.
activated within me. And once I started loving that and appreciating that and not being so embarrassed by the way I express the dragons, that's when I was okay to step out. But
Yeah.
it took practice and it took me being visible in front of people that I cared about so that I knew like that I was safe.
I really like how you put that. And I feel like for anyone that's listening, it's a wonderful, gentle reminder that spirituality and what it's supposed to look like might not look like that for you. And you bring up safety in that you really kind of leaned into this, but you also feel safe in your experience and in your journey. And that probably took time and practice and dedication and a willingness to be outside of the box and to not do your modality in a way that maybe someone else trained you. I
Right.
think that's so amazing. And it's an amazing reminder for myself who sometimes feels embarrassed to channel or maybe not comfortable with that voice. And
hmm
it's like, oh, well, if Teresa can do it, so can I.
Yes. Yeah, it is. There was a lot of It was very much a vocal wound,
Mm,
very much a vocal wound for me because being raised in a traditional Asian refugee family,
right,
there's a lot of like piety and a lot of you silence means respect. So you don't talk back, you don't argue, there's no opinions. And
right.
also whatever as a child to me, I just wanted to be the good girl because I wanted to be loved and I
Of
didn't want to
course.
cause trouble and I didn't want to be the one that was like standing out. And ironically, like look at me now, I'm the black sheep, I'm the weird one.
It's interesting that you are a Catholic because I went to a Catholic school, and that's kind of like part of the Catholic philosophy is you don't question, you don't speak back,
Mm.
you're there in the religion and you're there to be a part of it.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So one of the things that you've said is that my parents did not risk their lives for me to not love mine. What
Mhm.
does that statement mean to you on a soul level?
That's a really good question. To me, at the soul level, it means that my parents, right, agreed that they were going to create this life of freedom for me. Because had they not escaped, had they not, this is going to be a story for another time, but it was truly through divine timing that my parents were able to
Wow.
escape in the
I have
moment that
so
they
many
did.
chills coming in.
Yeah. And had they not escaped, I don't think I could do the work that I'm doing now. No way, not in Vietnam, no way. I would be poor and I wouldn't have any money and I would just want to work all the time. There would be no opportunities other than to make money, right?
Mm,
Like no creativity. It's just like your job in your life is to make money and survive. And at the soul level, because they gave me freedom, it's my job to be in that full expression of what freedom means to me.
yeah, that's a beautiful answer. I feel like for a lot of spiritual practitioners, freedom is very important to us, like not being boxed in. And it's amazing that you've acknowledged your parents' journey and where you are now, that you're called to really live your fullest expression of your soul. And that's
Mhm.
so important. So for those that are brand new to dragon channeling, which like you said, I know of you and one other person that channels dragon. So that's not a lot of people in the big old world.
Yeah.
How do you describe dragon energy?
Dragon energy is a very ancient life force energy that is here to help humanity in their healing and ascension. I know that's very generic. That's kind of like what the Dragon Collective say in their greeting. So what that means is they have all these abilities to um, wake up, wake you up to these dormant gifts that you have.
Mm,
And by the what I mean by dormant gifts is the gifts that were given to pass down to you because your ancestors 10,000 years ago, for example, were the only ones in your lineage who were in that full expression of their gifts. Because, say, 7,000 years ago, that's when, I'm making all these numbers up, by the way, that's when human consciousness evolved. And suddenly the woo was weird. Suddenly the woo was
mm,
dangerous. Suddenly rituals and gifts and you speaking light language and all of the, energy work and healings that people did, it was dangerous because there was no way to explain it. Like there was science stepped in, for example, and there was no way to explain it. Therefore, it was not credible. It was dangerous. It was different, and you were in danger. And as your lineage continued to face these fears, they continued to shut down their gifts. They couldn't be who they were. And so those gifts were not going to be passed on. And certainly there were people who would practice in silence, but they also would pass on and not continue to pass on their gifts for fear that their children or the people that they care about would be ostracized, killed, burned at the stake, you know, would chop their head off, whatever it is, whatever the punishment was. And so fast forward to today, it's there's an openness, there's a invitation, there's a people are curious and more I guess like inviting it to understand what spirituality is. Especially with social media now too, like
Mm,
people are like very curious. And so this is the time when a lot of people are waking up. I'm sure you've seen it, Rachel. Like the
yes.
things are happening so quickly, right? So
Yes.
dragons are coming back to take advantage of that time. They're like, okay, people are open and willing. Like, let's get this done. And so if we think about you and I being able to tap into the gifts of our ancestors 10,000 years ago who didn't have any fear, who never cared about judgment or criticism, who were completely able to be free in how they practiced and how they spoke and what they ate and how they used their hands, whether they wore clothes or not, like whether they worshiped four-leaf clovers or leaves on the tree, like nobody cared. So what if we were able to be in that full expression? How incredible that would be, like very unique gifts that would come through if we were willing and able to hold and once those gifts were activated, being able to hold the frequency of your ancestors who lived so long ago in the full expression of their gifts. So dragon energy is here to do that.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm like, oh, that's so exciting.
Hmm.
So many people listening may wonder, am I making this up? When they begin connecting with guides, with dragons, angels, intuitive messages, how do you help people to learn to trust what they're receiving?
Ugh, it's so hard. It's so hard to trust yourself.
Mm,
That is first and foremost, because you and I can tell our clients or our friends or the people we care about, you have a team in spirit, you have this invisible support system. But until they experience it themselves, until they have the belief and trust that the signs and synchronicities that occur in their life is on purpose, until they
mm,
trust that is on purpose, they're going to continue to question. So what I usually say, and I'm sure this is not unlike any other mentor, is that you ask them for a sign. It can be as easy as that. Ask them for a sign, but make it unique, like make it like a dragon with a wand and a purple crown. Like show me a dragon with a wand and a purple crown.
I love
And wait,
that.
I'd say like 2 to 3 days. But don't search for it. Just be
Mm,
very mindful and be very present, but don't like go looking for it because who knows, it might come through a book. It might be something that someone says. It might be in a dream, it might be in meditation, it might be through something like this,
right,
where they're
right.
watching and they ask for exactly that. And I said it, for example, and they'll be like, what the heck? That I was just looking and asking for that. So it's those
I
kind
love
of
that.
things where we have to be present and aware and mindful, but also not be so attached to it that we're
Mm,
constantly looking for the sign. And so one time it might be like, you might feel like it's a coincidence. Yeah. But you ask for another sign. Okay. And then the second time, I mean, come on. Let's not keep making excuses that spirit doesn't exist. So I tell people after the first sign, fine. Like you might think it's a coincidence. Let's do it again a second time. And if it happens again, then you know that it's real. But just because it doesn't happen, it doesn't
mm,
mean that it didn't happen. Because what were you doing over the last 3 days?
right,
Like were you
right.
watching? Were you not
Paying
present? Were
attention.
you worried? Were you anxious? Were you just focused on other things? Were you stressed out? All those things can contribute to whether or not you're actually seeing or
Mm.
receiving the signs and synchronicities.
I really like how you just said that. So you kind of brought this up before with doing the dragon energy healing sessions or just channeling. So your work focuses on helping people activate their intuitive gifts. What
Mhm.
are some signs that someone has dormant gifts beginning to wake up?
Uh, when they start working with dragon energy, if they're curious about dragon energy, they'll start seeing dragons everywhere. And that really is a sign for them that their dragon guides want to work with them. So if they are seeing, sensing, feeling dragons, that definitely is an activation like wanting to happen. But
Nice.
you then have to create that relationship, right? Just like when you date someone or want to build a friendship with someone really cool, like you can't just connect with them once and then stop talking to them and then expect them to like be your best friend the next time that you connect with them or expect a second date if you haven't talked to them, in 2 months, right? So you build the relationship so that you can start to feel I keep using safety because I feel like that is the biggest thing that people need to experience
Yeah.
in order to activate any gift because there's always that fear of loss of control and that
Mm,
fear of the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen for you either. So it is feeling safe enough to be able to surrender, meaning safe enough so that you're not so controlling in how this is going to work because you won't have control. You must
mm,
surrender to what is going to come up. But as this is why I always recommend people have spiritual mentors too, because if they're new to this, right, they're going to have a lot of questions.
mm,
And certainly you can find answers in books, but I find that answers in books is knowledge. What you want is someone with wisdom. You want someone who has used that knowledge and understand that knowledge and applied that knowledge. That becomes wisdom when you've applied
right.
it. So you want to seek someone with wisdom around the thing that you're experiencing. And as you work with your team in spirit, and understanding how it feels to be
Mm,
with them, understand like, okay, what is it that they are wanting to activate in me? Because they will give you a taste for it. It's usually in your dream wake state or when you're in a meditative state where you're totally in it. That's when you're less resistant and you
mm.
can basically allow them to give you like a little teaser of what that feels like. So when you have like a physical, visceral experience that you've never had before for a little moment, that is your hint. That is kind of like the feeling of, okay, something's waking up.
And I like how you said that, you're seeking out these kind of experiences, and it can be kind of with anything, but we're focusing on spirituality gifts at the moment. Look for, yes, books are amazing and they give you knowledge. And then a spiritual mentor can give you the wisdom. A spiritual mentor can also, like you said, can also help you to feel safe and also can help you feel seen and to validate your experience. And I feel
Mhm.
like with what you're leaning towards also is that when you're seeking out a spiritual mentor, it is paramount that you use your discernment. And
Absolutely.
that, can you maybe speak a little bit why that would be so important when you're seeking out a spiritual mentor?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure one that the mentor is experienced in whatever it is that you want to tap into.
Yeah.
The mentor also understands how to balance the ego with, supporting you in your experience.
Mhm.
Ego's always going to be with us. People always criticize the ego, but I know there's a reason for ego. But what you want is someone who's not inflated, someone who's not
Who
how do I say
isn't
this?
putting you up on a like You don't want somebody who's in an ego who is putting themselves on a pedestal of
Yes.
you trying
Thank
to
you.
reach to. Like they need to meet you where you're at.
Yes, yes. And also, don't freaking put your mentor or anyone on the pedestal because
Yes.
inevitably you will be disappointed. They
One
didn't
million
ask,
percent.
they
Or you'll
didn't
spend a
ask to
lot of
be put,
money and be frustrated.
yeah. And they didn't ask to be put on the
No, they
pedestal.
didn't. You chose to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yes, use discernment, like do your research,
Yes.
interview them, right? Like, who have they worked with? What was their journey like? Are they going to say this is, oh, I can do this? Like, I don't guarantee anything because I can't make anything happen, right? Like, you as in the teacher, can be the guide and you can tell them how to practice and you can tell them all the things,
Right.
but you can't make them do anything. So the responsibility is on the person who is seeking the mentor,
Absolutely.
So know that too. If you're seeking the mentor, you are the one like holding the power, not the mentor. So one, don't give your power to your mentor. And two, remember that you are your own sovereign being. And if you seek a mentor and there is something that they're asking you to do and it doesn't sit right with you, then you say no. And a mentor who is supportive and is doesn't have like their ego in charge, is the ego side of them is not in charge. They'll say, okay,
Right.
let's walk through this. Where is the resistance? Maybe there needs to be more clarity around like safetiness and whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody who is not like inflated with like, I know everything and I guarantee you this. And like, if someone guarantees you something, unless you get your money back 100% back, then I would not do it.
Absolutely. And then it also, I like how you brought up, it's also your responsibility as the person seeking out the mentor that if, and even just in your own spiritual practices, that you need to practice what you're trying to achieve. Like I really like how you put it into relationship, and you can't expect to be asked out on a second date if you're not putting in the work. Like
Yeah.
I really liked how you put that. You
Hmm.
need to put in the work. Like
Hmm.
if I come to you for, dragon energy type of, I'm not sure if you teach on it or whatnot. I know you do sessions and whatnot. I need to put in the work too. I can't just have you tell me, oh, Rachel, this is da 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 da. Like, no, then I need to
Hmm.
practice what you've transmitted to me.
Right.
So important.
Right.
So I think this is, you mentioned that some of our deepest blocks live in the nervous system, cellular memory, DNA, or even lifetimes of stored energy. How do you see dragon energy helping people to access healing at those really super deep levels?
Yeah. So dragon energy has all these pillars of uh, what do I call them? They're five pillars of dragon energy. So there is very quickly, sorry, the pillar
Okay.
of creation. Creation is this orgasmic um, life force. It's like Shakti energy.
Mm,
Okay. Like it is the rebirth, becoming this version of you. So when we think of having an orgasm, it is really the energy of creation. Because when we co create with a partner, for example, at the basic level, right? The purpose is for creation, but we also get pleasure out of it. And when we orgasm, that is the creation energy. And a lot of times I will see women who have the gifts already activated in them. This dragon energy actually will make them orgasm without touching themselves. And so this is this force, this Shakti creative force is that powerful. That is why it can go that deep. So that's like one pillar. And then there's a pillar of transformation where it's not actually the caterpillar that forms into the butterfly. It is the cocoon phase. It's the messy phase. Everything turns into liquid. And it's, you're sitting in the muck. And while you're sitting in the muck, what's unique about dragon energy during that phase of transformation is that it is accelerated. It doesn't take you 5 years, for example, to process through this. It is, you're not, it's not a shortcut. You're still going through the process. It just doesn't take you as long. And
I
then
like that.
there is activation, which we talked about, where the literally your dormant gifts are turned on. And they're turned on at the DNA level, where you start to experience gifts that are like no one else. And there's no documentation because it is so ancient and so old. And you have decided that you feel safe enough to be able to explore that and practice that. And so they will activate it. And then there is transfiguration. Transfiguration is like, transfiguration is like going I'm sorry, it's stepping into your true light essence. So I see this as like it's not just like one time. It's every time you have, for example, a spiritual awakening, or every time you have another activation. It is you coming into the light of who you are, your soul essence. So, what do we talk about? Activation,
Transfiguration. Yep.
creation, transformation,
Transfiguration.
transfiguration, transmutation is the last one. So, transmutation, you hear a lot about dragon energy and transmutation, where there's a dissolving of whatever issue that is. And again, I will keep telling people dragon energy is not a shortcut, but it is freaking efficient and fast. So, if you are open to it and you are okay feeling safe in this energy where it can move through you and it will start to clear your channel and you literally will feel it. It is like you can feel the heat, or you'll feel like this energy just free up inside you from your root up. It moves up like Kundalini, and it's not Kundalini, but it's like Kundalini. Like that's, it moves from the root all the way up, and that's how it starts to activate. So you'll feel it in your lower chakras because that's where a lot of our dense energy is.
Right.
And then the transmutation energy, whether it's through fire or ice or air or smoke. I mean, there's so much that the dragons can use to be able to clear and transmute the blocks or dissolve what's there to allow for what is underneath to come to the surface. And what I mean by that is like the real root of why you are living the way you live, the real root of why you are repeating the patterns that don't serve you, of why your current reality is not the life that you want to live.
I love that. I think this is a good segue now for us to have you lead us to the Dragon Code Light Activation experience for all the listeners. I'm so excited.
Yes. Okay. So let me just adjust my audio settings.
Whatever you need. We're very excited.
Okay. There's nothing special anyone needs to do. You just have to relax and stay open. And as I tell people, just surrender to the sound. So one of the things that dragons love is the drum. So if you want to connect to energy, the drum is a wonderful and beautiful way to do that. Okay, just close your eyes and breathe. Mm,
That was amazing.
How do you feel?
I really appreciate the fact that you said that it comes up from the root and up, because
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly how I felt it was coming up. And then it just felt like it was sitting in my heart. And interesting enough, like I felt like dragons were around my face and silver, like crystalline energy was coming in. And I was like, this is so fascinating. Thank
It
you.
always makes me very buzzy, inside. I'm very like there's a lot of
It's
energy.
like, it must
Yeah.
make you feel like do you get energized after you channel? You're like, I'll go clean the house.
I won't do that, but yeah.
You're like, take it down a notch, Rachel. No, thank you so much. I can feel it in the back of my head. I can
Mhm.
feel it like it's very interesting
Mhm.
energy that's coming in. I thank you. That
Yeah.
was quite the gift that you just gave to us. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
I guess for our last question, for anyone that's interested in learning more about you, booking a session or anything like that, what is the best place for them to go to?
My social media and website all have the same name. So it's Teresa Win Speaks. My first name, my last name, Speaks. So website is teresawinspeaks.com. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Teresa, thank you so much for being on the Spiritual Spotlight series. This truly has been amazing to connect with you again. I have like 30 more questions, but we'll have to have you come on again.
It
Thank you
sounds
so
good. Thank you
much.
for having me.